Can't touch this. Stop. Oscar time.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 23 worst animated movies of each year, 2000 to 2022.
That's because I believe in you.
Should we wash our hands?
For this list, we'll be starting in 2000 and working our way to 2022, looking at the worst animated movie offerings from each year. We'll be considering feature films that played in theaters as well as direct-to-video or streaming options. We won't be looking at made-for-TV movies though. Which movie on our list brings back the worst memories for you? Let us know in the comments down below. 2000, Titanic, The Legend Goes On. To be clear, this Titanic movie wasn't directed by James Cameron and doesn't feature an iconic Celine Dion ballad. It does, however, feature mediocre animation, a lame story, and animal side characters that include a family of Yiddish mice and a rapping dog.
Just leave your troubles at the door, leave your worries behind, leave the rest up to me, you're gonna like what you find. I'll be busting the moves and I'll be busting the rhymes, we'll be busting up laughing cause it's party time. Sadly
for this Italian-made animated film, the only legend that it has maintained is that of being a terrible film. While the 1997 live-action movie won the Oscar for Best Picture, Total Film magazine voted the animated Titanic: The Legend Goes On as the worst film ever made.
I was too busy looking for someone. Now that I've found her, I'm not going to let her get away from me again.
Hold me, never let me go.
2001, The Trumpet of the Swan. Based on a novel by the great E.B. White, this one definitely had some top-notch source material.
I like it. Play some more. Thank you, Louie. I don't know what it is, but it's really sweet.
But while we know that movies for grown-ups are often not as good as the books they're based on, The Trumpet of the Swan proves that old adage is also true for animated kids movies. The film did have some impressive voice talent, including Reese Witherspoon, Jason Alexander, and Carol Burnett.
We're gonna go home, best of them all. Everyone will listen when our trumpets call. You'll be my reflection, everyone will see. You'll be the spitting image of me.
And the message about being different, overcoming, and finding strength in your personal challenges is definitely inspirational. However, the film itself is, to quote the Rotten Tomatoes critical consensus, uninspired. 2002, 8 Crazy Nights. Adam Sandler has had a whole lot of success in the 21st century, but 2002 was, shall we say, an off year for the Sandman. On the live action side, he starred in Mr. Deeds, a lame remake of a Frank Capra film that earned him a Razzie nomination for Worst Actor.
Oh, you're starting to like it, aren't you? Chop that wood. Yeah, that's it. Ow! You're sick! You're sick! Why would you do that to me? I'm just kidding you, pal.
On the animation front, Sandler starred in and co-wrote the Hanukkah musical comedy 8 Crazy Nights. And while there are some pretty good Sandler songs in the film, the movie itself is vulgar, immature, and not as funny as it thinks it is.
I'm acting like the town before, whipping out my big white scary moon.
Along with Mr. Deeds, 8 Crazy Nights earned Sandler a second Worst Actor Razzie nomination. 2003, Bolivar El Héroe. Simón Bolívar was a South American hero who led many countries on the continent in their fight for independence from the Spanish Empire in the 1800s. Also known as El Libertador, Bolívar has an important place in the history of South America. As for Bolivar El Héroe, the animated film about his life, well, it has a much less respected place in people's hearts and minds. In fact, many who have seen it probably wish they could erase it from their memory. But trust us, when we say that it would be hard to forget seeing this poorly drawn, Spanish language, anime styled film. 2004, Shark Tale. It does seem a little odd to make a kids movie in 2004 that's a parody of movies from the 1970s like The Godfather and Jaws.
This is the best sit down I've ever been to.
What are you doing with this guy? He took out your own flesh and blood. Frankie.
But Pop, just
For
listen.
nothing. You never take sides against the family, ever.
But if the little ones didn't understand the references, it didn't stop them from seeing the movie, as Shark Tale made over $370 million at the box office. And while the critics were generally unkind to the film, its place on this list is as much a victim of its surroundings as it is a consequence of the mediocrity of the movie itself.
So then there's me.
I'm getting there. There's Carl. There's Rux. There's Whale Poo. And then there's you.
That's messed up.
Unfortunately for Shark Tale, the film found itself being compared to DreamWorks' previous award-winning Shrek and Pixar's recent underwater adventure Finding Nemo, two films with high bars that Shark Tale couldn't come close to reaching. 2005, Chicken Little. Talk about mixed feelings. While Chicken Little made over $300 million and was nominated for the Annie Award for Best Animated Feature, it also has an unimpressive 36% on Rotten Tomatoes and won Worst Animated Film at the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards. And for us, we're Team Stinkers.
Just do me one favor, son.
Sure, Dad, anything.
Just please try not to get your hopes too high.
While Chicken Little looks good, provides a few laughs, and was the first film released in Disney Digital 3D, in the end, it all comes down to story. And this one brings nothing really original or overly interesting to the table. But at least the sky isn't falling.
Run for your lives! Everyone run for cover! SOS! Mayday! Mayday! Code Red, duck and cover! You're all in danger!
2006, Dougal. In the 1960s and 70s, there was a show on British television called The Magic Roundabout that dubbed an original English script over content from an animated French show called Le Ménage Enchanté. In 2005, the Magic Roundabout movie based on that show was released in the UK. In 2006, an American dubbed version of that film was released in North America. That movie is Dougal, and it sucks.
This guy is seriously messing with the wrong bunny!
While the original UK version had pretty average reviews, that film looked like Citizen Kane compared to the brutal things people had to say about Dougal's writing and forced celebrity voice talent. We wish the Weinstein Company had stayed far away from this one.
You don't want to press our buttons, right, Dougal?
Yeah, that's the last we'll see of them.
2007, Elf Bowling the Movie, The Great North Pole Elf Strike. Have you seen the movie Elf Bowling 2, The Great Halloween Pumpkin Heist? No, you haven't. And you know why you haven't? Because Elf Bowling the Movie, The Great North Pole Elf Strike was so bad, they canceled the plans to make a sequel.
Man, we could use that in Detroit.
That's me, boy.
Although, are we really surprised that a film based on a 1998 video game in which Santa Claus knocks down elf pins wasn't any good? Maybe having the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants in the film would give you hope. But even Tom Kenny can't save this one. He even sings a song in the movie called Slavery Makes the World Go Round. Enough said.
Slavery makes the world go round. It's easy enough to see. What could be better than making people sweat for you? I'll tell you, forcing them to do it for free.
2008, Delgo. We know at least a few people who were happy that Delgo came out. The people who made Dougal. Because until Delgo, Dougal held the record for the lowest grossing computer animated film of all time.
Your reign has come to its end, dear brother. Sadly, I must now rule alone.
But with its take of just over $900,000 at the box office, Delgo easily claimed the top spot on that list. Or we guess the bottom spot, depending on how you look at it. And it wasn't just the audience who rejected it. Delgo has an 11% score on Rotten Tomatoes due to its rehashing of standard fantasy film ideas and less than impressive animation.
I don't need any help from a Lockney.
Really? Like you didn't need any help with that yag?
What good are you? You can't even fly.
He's got a point, Delgo. Good point, sir.
2009, The Frog Prince. In case you're a little confused right now, we aren't talking about Disney's 2009 Academy Award nominated The Princess and the Frog, but rather this entry belongs to The Frog Prince, a Brazilian company's animated take on the same grim fairy tale.
Frogs are definitely not hideous.
I'd sooner choose to become a banana tree than a frog.
That doesn't matter. The oracle has been given. I'm going now. I'm gone.
And while Brazil has many amazing exports, this film isn't one of them. From the poor animation to the uninspired voice acting, this frog of a movie would need more than just princess kisses to turn into a prince of a film.
Someone I can talk to, someone intelligent and who likes me for what I am inside. I don't think that's asking too much. Can you relate to that?
I can. Of course I can.
2010, Space Chimps 2, Zartog Strikes Back. The first Space Chimps movie in 2008 wasn't beloved, but it did make some money at the box office, and Roger Ebert called it delightful from beginning to end. So we can understand why they went ahead and made a second one.
Is it me, or is this guy great? Here you go, kid. Can I really?
But as unimpressive as the first film's 33% score on Rotten Tomatoes is, it's a whole lot better than the 0% that Space Chimps 2 Zartog Strikes Back scored. A score it earned in part because of the step back it took in the quality of CGI, as well as the uninspired, or as some reviewers called it, unnecessary script.
It worked. You brought them all back.
That's our boy. Good work, buddy. Now that's what I call a magic trick.
2011, Hoodwink 2, Hood vs. Evil. 2005's Hoodwink was a major financial success. The film was made for only $8 million and earned $110 million at the box office. The same can't be said about the sequel Hoodwink 2, Hood vs. Evil. Sure, it has a pun-tastic title, but a good pun will only get you so far.
There ain't no way my bridge will be across by some muffin-delivering, red hood-wearing, fairy-tale cliche little girl. Get up out of here.
In this case, it got as far as $23 million at the box office on a $30 million budget, and a review calling it one of the most obnoxious and least necessary animated films of the century thus far. Before we jump away from 2011, we should also mention Hop, a film that, while praised for its use of live action and animation, was generally panned for its script and ho-hum story.
Oh, he's so soft and cute and cuddly and warm.
Okay, why don't we put him back before things get uncomfortable?
2012, Food Fight. 2012 saw Dr. Seuss's wonderful story The Lorax turned into a computer animated film. And while it was well animated and a hit at the box office, it was criticized for its watering down of Seuss's message of environmentalism and overconsumption.
But I remember when trees were everywhere and no one had to pay for air, so I say, let it grow!
Not to mention the irony of the film's rampant licensing to companies from disposable diapers to gas-fueled cars. But that being said, it certainly wasn't the worst thing we saw in 2012. That honor belongs to the truly awful, on all fronts, Food Fight. And if you don't believe us, watch about 30 seconds and see for yourself.
I have the dirty dog. Cookie aisle, go!
Come and get me, baby.
Attack and annihilate!
From the terrible writing to the animation that looks half finished, Food Fight rightly deserves its spot on the many worst movies of all time list it has found itself on. 2013, Planes. The following year's Planes, Fire and Rescue received mixed reviews, but the one thing most people could agree on was that it was better than 2013's Planes. The latter one did do better business at the box office, and as with most Disney productions, it was well acted and well animated.
That was pretty good for a grub duster.
And not bad for an old timer who doesn't fly.
But once you get past the pretty visuals, Planes doesn't really have much substance below that surface. One reviewer went so far as to say that Planes is dead in its big, googly eyes and hollow inside.
Just like Mama used to spray.
They say that such a smell is the first thing to go.
Maybe a little harsh, but you get the point. 2014, The Nut Job. Will Arnett is a very funny guy, and he and the rest of the cast do their best to make The Nut Job a worthwhile cinematic experience.
And did I mention the peanut brittle?
that a candy or a nut?
Both.
However, while very young kids might have been happy with the solid animation, a few sight gags, and silly jokes, most people weren't, as evidenced by the 13% score the film received on Rotten Tomatoes.
I can do all sorts of stuff. You want to see? You know what? I can fetch things, huh? I can sit. Oh, look at this thing. This is crazy. Woo, woo, woo. Has a mind of its own.
Unfortunately for most of us who watched it, this computer animated heist film ended up stealing an hour and 26 minutes of our lives we will never get back. 2015, Strange Magic. Strange Magic was a film from Lucasfilm Animation, based on a George Lucas story that he came up with using William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream as inspiration.
Tell him that you're never gonna leave him. Tell him that you're always gonna love him. Tell him.
Tell him.
Tell him.
And although it is the company's only film that isn't part of the Star Wars universe, it has a few things in common with the iconic franchise, specifically the lesser episodes. Namely the fact that it looks great, but the writing is, shall we say, not so great?
No matter what people say, it didn't happen that way. She was a passing flame and not a permanent thing.
Really?
And it wasn't just critics who railed against the film either. Strange Magic bombed at the box office like it was the Death Star in A New Hope. 2016, Norm of the North. You might have assumed that since there were 3 Norm of the North sequels, the first film was worthwhile. Well, you know what they say about assuming. First off, the 3 sequels all released direct to video. And second, we honestly aren't sure how they got approved, given the audience and critical rejection of this first film. It might sound crazy, but a movie needs more than just a dancing polar bear to be good.
The Arctic Shake.
Everybody, let me speak free.
I put the soul in winter solstice.
And besides that, and some very lame and worn out jokes, Norm of the North doesn't have much else. One critic called it an excruciating endurance test, and thankfully it's one most people didn't take, given the paltry $30 million box office.
Show me what you got. Put this body on the floor.
2017, The Emoji Movie. In The Emoji Movie, Sir Patrick Stewart voices a poop emoji. We don't really need to say anything else, do we? But we will. No offense to Patrick Stewart, but his character would also be the emoji we would use to describe the entire film.
It's showtime.
The scanner will scan you, and that scan will get sent right up to Alex's text box.
Maybe throw in a thumbs down and an angry red-faced guy as well, to represent how most people felt walking out of the theater afterwards. And while the film received a ton of criticism for its lack of originality, it did do something no other animated film ever did before. It won Worst Picture, Worst Director, and Worst Screenplay at the 38th Golden Raspberry Awards. Triple threat, baby. Triple threat.
Wait, what?
Be back.
Abort! Oh,
Shut it down.
2018, Sherlock Gnomes. For those who thought there were no more good gnome pun movie titles after Gnomeo and Juliet, Sherlock Gnomes proved them wrong.
The Sistine Chapel of evil plans, and you just spray painted a cartoon cat all over it.
Well then, sir, my hat's off to you.
Literally!
But those who thought there would be no more good gnome animated movies, well, Sherlock Gnomes proved them right. Sure, Elton John wrote a song for the movie, and it's performed by Mary J. Blige in the film. But even the Rocket Man and the Queen of R&B can't save this weak effort.
Whispers, tell a lie, starts a rumor, makes you cry. It's out there, post the signs, it's no secret, you're no prize.
A good song, good animation, and a laugh or two aren't enough to save the lame script and an uninteresting mystery. 2019, Playmobil the movie. Just because they made an awesome movie based on Lego doesn't mean that every animated movie based on a line of toys is going to be great. Case in point, Playmobil the movie. While we'd stand up for Playmobil toys any day of the week, There's no denying they screwed the pooch when it came to the movie.
You can do it, nothing to it. Say I believe when it's time to fly.
The film has none of the originality, brilliant storytelling, and laugh out loud humor that the Lego movie does. Instead, it feels like an attempt to capitalize on the popularity of other films while trying to do nothing more than sell more Playmobil toys.
It's okay, Charlie. You were right. I was? We really were meant to be here. Viking and Knight, side by side, together.
2020, Bobbleheads the movie. According to IMDb, this movie was 35 years in the making as they tried to figure out a character for Cher to voice. They eventually chose a bobblehead. Really, 35 years to pick a toy that, by 2020, wasn't even that popular, just so Cher could show up for 2 minutes at the end of the movie as herself in bobblehead form?
Cher! I'm bobblehead Cher. You know, don't get me wrong, Cher's great, but I'm my own bobblehead. And I'm a representative of the Bobblehead High Council.
Unfortunately, while they were spending 35 years coming up with that, it feels like they spent about 35 minutes figuring out the rest of the movie. The story barely makes any sense. The animation looks worse than stuff released decades prior, and the main characters are generic and stereotypical.
Huh? No drama. Bobble Creed. Gotta do the righteous thing at all times. Proper Bob Sweet.
And the most annoying thing of all, the constant bobbling of their heads. 2021, The Addams Family 2. There's a lyric in the Addams Family theme song that goes,
When people come to see 'em, they really are a spree 'em, the Addams Family.
And unfortunately, what most people were screaming about after seeing The Addams Family 2 was how bad a movie it was. While the first film earned a not-so-great 45% Rotten Tomato score, the 2021 sequel did even worse, coming in at 28%. And even though the audience score was more generous, the general consensus was that it was a decent family film. But it didn't do justice to the ookiness and kookiness that makes the Addams Family so endearing in a creepy kind of way.
Being different is the most Addamsy thing there is.
Different is what the extra D in Addams stands for.
I always thought it stood for dismemberment.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
2022, The Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild. Some of the best things about the Ice Age movies are the celebrity voices of Ray Romano, John Leguizamo, Dennis Leary, and Queen Latifah. Let's not forget Scrat, the saber-toothed squirrel. Well, the Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild has none of them.
I love you guys.
We love you too. Hey! You guys actually did it! I'm proud of you.
Besides Simon Pegg, the voice of Buck, all of the other characters had new voice actors, and Scrat was nowhere to be seen. And speaking of what we saw, the animation is really not up to par with 2022 standards, looking, as one reviewer put it, akin to a late-stage pre-Viz pass.
I didn't know you had it in you, mostly because you act like total dimwits all the time.
Ah, I love family reunions, but there's no buffet, so time to head home.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.